So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Rich Clark, a guide to the right path. So, as I've been talking as of yesterday, and I'm going to be talking as the rest of this week about negative mindset. For part two, I'm going to talk about the treatments used I would do myself as a therapist to help people with a negative mindset get over it. I've explained the different negative mindsets yesterday. There was a fair few, but the negative mindset, just explain it again, is a persistent pattern of negative thoughts, beliefs, and expectations that affect perception and behavior. It often involves cognitive distortions like catastrophizing, so people making the worst of everything, or overgeneralisation, which can lead to more severe anxiety, depression, if not treated earlier. So the therapeutic methods I would use are the following. So the first is cognitive behaviour therapy, CBT. And this is what you'd help to with someone with a negative mindset, is you'd help change the patterns of behaviour into external drive to implement into the cognitive reframe of a positive instead of a negative mindset. Now, let me make that a bit clearer in English because it sounds a bit jargony. What you would do is the internal and external drive. So intrinsic drive or motivation is you would include that to help that with the cognitive part of the brain. And the cognitive part of the brain is the frontal lobe of the brain. And that is where you make decisions, gives you persuasions, gives you drive, gives you ways of getting through anxiety, getting you through obstacles. That is what is essential to help people get over a negative mindset. Then is the next part for one of the things I do after I've done that, changing the patterns of behavior, is I would be setting the SMART goal. And this is setting with a detailed plan of action. So what is SMART? We hear this a lot in business and so forth. It's these 5 ideas, which is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And to actually start adding this into people's mindset is very important because it actually helps them to start seeing things, to focus in instead of going off on tangents or being distracted. This really pinpoints what they need to achieve. Now, within this is the other part of CBT is the reframing and rescaling their thought records with guidance into patterns of proactivity instead of falling to the patterns of reactive behavior. Negative mindset is generally a reactive action. It's not proactive because if people think that, negative mindset is you're proactive, you already are going in with a negative mindset. It's not true. It's actually when something comes forth to you. And then if that person has had an issue with that before, that's where the reactive behavior comes. Anyway, the next one is hypnotherapy approaches. So as a hypnotherapist, mainly as my training is, there's a few here I think is very important, especially to deal with a negative mindset. So challenge the emotional issues. And this is by visualizing the client's personal timeline. Now, when we talk about personal timeline, we're looking at the past and how we work with that. But again, we go more into that. And what we do is the client is then guided through their memories to receive and resolve their past trauma that affects the current negative mindset. This is so crucial to working with the negative mindset because it is usually negative mindset is being started or it's being implemented as you were young, because that is your first social conditioning is usually the family. Then next would be education, and then obviously society with the more people you get to know, or in the work environment when you're older. But all these things, if you don't rechange these patterns, that can also then spiral into worse conditions. So the next one for hypnotherapy is you use guided imagery and you using future life progression or coaching to a path of motivation. Now with that is that we're using, everybody talks about past life, which is about looking at your past lives, whether that's incarnation or other incarnations. That's the spiritual side. But we're going to look at it from the normal person. We just look at their past and their timeline. We revive, we accept what's happened in the past and we forgive that. And then we revive the middle into how making that positive. But seeing the creative side of you and seeing where getting rid of that negative mindset is seeing the future when you remove that negative mindset and see what you can achieve. That's important because most people cannot always see where they can achieve or what they can accomplish. That is important, especially with people who have a negative mindset. So to remove that is very important. The next one for hypnotherapy is regression, and the regression guides clients and people via the hypnosis state to recollect their past memory or experiences. And this is to address their current issues of negative mindset. And usually, like I said, it's usually from childhood, and then they are triggered or affected by in adulthood. So when you actually meet people with a negative mindset, I would guarantee at least from my workings, about 80% to 90% of clients who have that is because in childhood or in their family, they have that absolutely conditioned into their mindset. And it is. So, when they think, oh, the negative mindset, oh, I've just always been negative. It's not. It's been conditioned by the family. But now, if your family, if they've passed on, or they're not really part of your general life, then you really should be moving on to actually being positive. The next one is the other therapy is a psychotherapy approach. So with this also is to exercises to change the negative mindset, and we do this with breathwork, pranayama, or visualization exercises. So breathwork is the Western idea of it. Pranayama is the Indian Vedic spirituality side of it, from the yogic of the 8 limbs of yoga. And then the visualization is where we're doing guided meditation or visually seeing things. So with future life progression, you see that under hypnosis, but actually visualization is also, you can see these things as well as you'd be initiating these things via the rest of it to then look at it for everything you want to do going forward. And the other thing about the psychological approach is the challenging emotional issues of inner child work. And the inner child work is by visualizing the client's personal timeline. And this is not in hypnosis. This is to deal with up and coming scenarios in conscious state. And so with negative mindset, you've got to work not only in the subconscious state, under trance state, you can actually work with it in non-trance state. And a lot of this is a lot of motivation. A lot of it is to remove the anxiety blocks, and within this is to reframe the brain. And once you do that, the negative mindset will dissipate after time. It sometimes takes a long time with people with negative mindset, because usually it would be more than 3 sessions, because the first session is to find out what is the first thing of why they've got it. Second session, third session would usually be about trying to find out all the main things, what have caused them to look at certain things and what has been affected them. To find this out, usually they would do a discovery call, the first bit, to find out what their issues are. And you do that with myself, where you contact www.richclark.net and you book a discovery call. These discovery calls are free. I sit with you for half an hour to an hour. We talk over Zoom, and we explain, and you go through all the issues you're going through, and we find out how this negative mindset is affecting your jobs, your relationships, your work colleagues, your friendships, and so forth. And then within that, we're going to find out why this is happening. Why do you have these problems? And that is what we can do with that. And then hopefully, and some people, negative mindsets, it's not they've always got it consistently. It can be just certain things what do it. So it can sometimes be less sessions. Most people, I would say, go into 3 to 5 to 7 sessions, because there's so many different things and the way it permutates in different ways. So anyway, to go into another thing, if you want to listen to Negative Mindset Part 1 to know all the different parts. Negative 2, which I've explained, is the way I would use my therapy to help you with that. And then going into Part 3 tomorrow will be a case study, and that will explain how I helped someone get over their negative mindset. And then Part 4, which I usually only do Part 3, but Part 4, I'm going to explain about a concept called Hegel's concept theory, about the idea of how people can change their negative mindset and how they have to work towards that, and work towards actually changing to not a positive mindset, but actually being away from their fixed mindset to then hopefully growth in what they want to do. So until next time, I shall speak to you soon.